Hey there, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to discuss a very important topic in the central nervous system, which is called as the pyramidal tract. Pyramidal tract is also called as the corticospinal tract. Okay, a very important topic. So listen to this class till the end of the video, because at the end of the video I'm going to give a clinical related question as to how this question can be asked in your examination. And for those people who are watching my video and who haven't subscribed to my channel, please hit the subscribe button. So let's understand what are the learning objectives for the pyramidal tract. Let's have a brief introduction and let's then see the origin, course and termination of the corticospinal or the pyramidal tract, and then see the effect of lesion. What is going to happen if there is a lesion, how the patient is going to present to us if there is a lesion of the pyramidal tract. Okay. In the introduction, I would briefly like to tell you about the layers of the cortex. Okay. Layers of the cortex. There are 6 layers of the cortex. The Layer 1 is what is called as a molecular layer, or also called as plexiform layer. Layer 2 is the external granular layer. Layer 3 is the outer pyramidal layer. Layer 4 is the internal granular layer. Layer 5 is the inner pyramidal or the inner ganglion layer. And layer 6 is the multiform or the polymorphic layer. Okay, the layer of interest as far as the corticospinal tract is concerned is the inner pyramidal or the ganglion layer, and the cells which are present in this inner pyramidal or ganglion layer is what is called as the giant pyramidal cells. These ones, as you can see, they are very big cells, giant pyramidal cells. These giant pyramidal cells, they are also called as Betz cell. This much we have to know regarding the layers of the cortex. Next, let me also tell you regarding the areas, that is the motor cortex and the somatosensory cortex. So where is motor? If someone is asking you as to where is motor cortex located, what you are going to tell? So motor cortex is located in front of this sulcus. What is that sulcus? That sulcus is nothing but the central sulcus. Okay, I'm going to draw that again. See, this is the central sulcus. So the area which is located in front of the central sulcus and which is occupying the posterior 1/3 of the frontal lobe is what is called as a motor cortex. And now this motor cortex is further subdivided into 3 areas. One is what is called as the primary motor cortex. This is located immediately in front of the central sulcus. Second is called as the premotor cortex, and the third one is called as the supplementary motor area. Also, we have to remember that the primary motor cortex and the supplementary motor cortex are also encroaching onto the medial surface of the cerebral hemisphere. And the area which is located posterior to the central sulcus, that is this area, this much. Okay, posterior to the central sulcus is what is called as somatosensory cortex. So this is the location of the motor cortex and the somatosensory cortex. Next, let's see the origin of the fibers. The origin from where, which are the areas from which the pyramidal tract or the so-called the corticospinal tract is getting its origin from. 30% of the fibers, they take origin from the primary motor cortex. Which layer of the primary motor cortex? They are taking origin from the layer 5 of the primary motor cortex. And which cells in the layer 5 of the primary motor cortex? They are taking origin from the so-called Betz cells, or also called as the pyramidal cell. Another 30% of the fibers are taking origin from the premotor cortex and also from the supplementary motor area. And the remaining 40% of the fibers, they are taking origin from the somatosensory cortex. So what does that mean? That means 60% of the fibers, they are taking origin from the motor cortex, and 40% of the fibers are taking origin from the somatosensory cortex. So this is crystal clear regarding the origin of the pyramidal tract. Next, let's see the course of the pyramidal tract. Now, the corticospinal tract or the pyramidal tract, after taking origin from all these above mentioned cortical areas, the fibers are going to descend down. And how do they descend down? They descend down in the form of a mass of radiating fibers. So this mass of radiating fibers, which we can see here, this is what is called as corona radiata. Okay, this is called as the corona radiata. And where do they descend? They descend down to this area, which is called as the internal capsule. Okay, and remember the internal capsule is divided into three parts. There is an anterior limb, there is a genu, and then there is a posterior limb. We have to be very specific here, and we have to mention that the fibers are passing through the posterior limb of the internal capsule. And this posterior limb of the internal capsule is extremely important clinically. Why is it extremely important clinically? Because this is the most common site of lesion for the corticospinal tract fibers. Now the next question arises is, why do you think this is the most common site of lesion? The answer is lying with the blood supply of this area. See, in this diagram, I have shown you a very simple diagram of the internal capsule. This is the anterior limb, this is the genu, and this is the posterior limb. As here we can see, these are the arteries which are supplying the posterior limb. What are these arteries? These arteries are coming from this artery which is called as a middle cerebral artery. So what are these arteries? These arteries are called as lenticulostriate branches. Lenticulostriate branches of middle cerebral artery. So this lenticulostriate branches of the middle cerebral artery, these are highly susceptible for rupture in hypertensive patients. So patients are chronically hypertensive, or patients in whom the hypertension is not controlled, this is the most common artery to rupture in the central nervous system. Now once this artery is ruptured, the blood supply to the internal capsule and hence to the pyramidal tract fibers is impaired. That is why this becomes the most common site of lesion for the corticospinal tract fibers or for the pyramidal tract fibers. Remember this point. Okay. Next, the fibers have entered into the posterior limb of the internal capsule, and now what is happening? The fibers are descending down. And where do the fibers go next? The fibers are entering into the cerebral peduncle of the midbrain. Okay, they enter into the cerebral peduncle of the midbrain, and then the fibers descend down further and they pass through what is called as the basilar portions of the pons. Fibers further descend down and then they pass through a very important structure in the medulla which is called as pyramid. That is why this tract is also called as the pyramidal tract. Then what is going to happen to these fibers in the lower part of the medulla? As here we can see, 80% of the fibers are crossing over to the opposite side. And once they have crossed over to the opposite side, they further descend down onto the spinal cord and enter into what is called as the lateral white funiculus of the spinal cord. Okay, 80% of the fibers have crossed over to the opposite side in the lower part of the medulla, and then they descend down onto the spinal cord and then they enter into the lateral white funiculus of the spinal cord. Now what is happening to the remaining 20% of the fibers? Remaining 20% of the fibers are remaining on the same side. They are also going to descend down onto the spinal cord, but where they are going to enter? They are going to enter in the anterior white funiculus of the spinal cord. Now this 80% of the crossed fibers are called as lateral corticospinal tract, and the 20% of the uncrossed fibers which are there on the same side are called as anterior corticospinal tract fibers. So now we have two corticospinal tracts. One is called as a lateral corticospinal tract, which is a crossed fibers, and where the crossing is taking place? Crossing is taking place at the lower part of the medulla, and 20% of the fibers are remaining onto the same side. These are the one which are called as the anterior corticospinal tract fibers. So this is the course of the corticospinal tract. Next, let's see one very important concept which we have to understand here is that this pyramidal tract or the corticospinal tract is also called as the upper motor neuron. That is the fibers which are extending from the cortex till the level of the spinal cord. Okay, these fibers are called as the upper motor neuron. Remember that upper motor neuron fibers just does not mean corticospinal tract fibers or the pyramidal tract fibers, because in this bundle of fibers we are also having one more very important tract which is called as the corticobulbar tract. Now what is this corticobulbar tract? Corticobulbar tract is nothing but These are the fibers which are of course arising from the cortex, and where they are terminating in the motor nuclei of the cranial nerves. Now where this motor nuclei of the cranial nerves is present, this is present in the entire brain stem. Few motor nuclei are present in the pons, few are present in the midbrain, and few might be also present in the medulla oblongata. So these are the fibers which are arising from the cortex, and they are terminating in the motor nuclei of the brain stem. So what these fibers are called as? These are called as corticobulbar fibers, and corticobulbar fibers are intertwined with the corticospinal fibers. So whenever I am saying upper motor neuron, that point of time I am not just referring to the corticospinal fibers, I am also referring to the corticobulbar fibers. Okay, and more so when we use the word upper motor neuron lesion, at that point of time it just doesn't mean that there is a lesion of the corticospinal tracts. Along with the corticospinal tracts, always remember there is also lesion of the corticobulbar fibers. Okay, I have put up this slide just to explain you that. Okay, I hope it's clear. Now next, coming to the last part of the corticospinal tract, we will see the termination of the corticospinal tract. Here we can see the cross section of the spinal cord, and this area what we are seeing is the lateral corticospinal tract. As I have told you, lateral corticospinal tract is going to occupy the lateral white funiculus of the spinal cord, and here we can see this is the anterior corticospinal tract fiber, and this is going to occupy the anterior white funiculus. Lateral corticospinal tract fibers are what? They are the crossed fibers. Anterior corticospinal tract fibers are the what? They are the uncrossed fibers. So here this part is called as the ventral gray horn. This part is called as the dorsal gray horn. The dorsal gray horn is the one which is receiving the sensory fibers. Okay, which is receiving the sensory fibers. Okay, in the ventral gray horn we are having neurons which are called as alpha motor neurons. Okay, these are the neurons which are going and supplying to the skeletal muscles. Okay, and these alpha motor neurons are divided into two groups. One group which is present in the lateral part of the ventral gray horn is called as the lateral group of the alpha motor neuron. Another alpha motor neuron which is present in the medial group is called as the medial group of the alpha motor neurons. So our lateral corticospinal tract fibers are going to terminate basically on the lateral group of the alpha motor neurons. This termination can occur directly, or this termination can occur via the interneurons. Okay, it can occur via the interneurons. These are the interneurons which are present in the intermediate part of the gray matter of the spinal cord. So one is termination can occur directly onto the alpha motor neurons which are situated in the lateral part of the ventral gray horn. Second thing is that termination is going to occur on the interneurons, and then these interneurons are ultimately coming and terminating on the alpha motor neurons. The third thing is that the fibers of the lateral corticospinal tract, they also terminate on the sensory neurons which are present in the dorsal gray horn of the spinal. Okay, so there could be three modes of termination. One is directly on the alpha motor neuron. Second one is on the interneurons which are present in the intermediate part of the gray matter of the spinal cord. From there it is going to terminate again onto the alpha motor neuron. Third is it also terminates, the fibers are also going to terminate onto the sensory relay neurons which are entering the dorsal gray horn of the spinal cord. Now what about the anterior corticospinal tract fibers? I said that the anterior corticospinal tract fibers are not crossing at the level of the medulla, but they are going to cross over at the level of the spinal cord, and they are going to terminate onto the alpha motor neurons which are present in the medial half of the dorsal gray horn. Why we have this division into lateral and medial group of the alpha motor neurons is that the alpha motor neurons which are present in the lateral group, these are the one which are concerned with voluntary skillful movements. Okay, and the alpha motor neurons which are present on the medial group are the one which are concerned with the maintenance of posture. Hence, these are the one which are supplying to the axial group of muscles. So that means the anterior corticospinal tract fibers are more concerned with the maintenance of the posture, and the lateral corticospinal tracts are the one which are mainly concerned with the voluntary skillful movements of the limbs. Okay, so this is the termination. So just to summarize the termination, lateral corticospinal tracts, they terminate on the intermediate regions of the gray matter on the interneurons. They also terminate on the sensory relay neurons in the dorsal horn, and they also terminate directly onto the alpha motor neurons in the ventral gray horn directly. Which group of the alpha motor neurons? They are going to terminate on the lateral group of the alpha motor. And what about the termination of the anterior corticospinal tracts? Anterior corticospinal tracts are going to cross over to the opposite side at the level of the spinal cord, and then they are going to terminate onto the medial group of the alpha motor neurons in the ventral horn. Lateral corticospinal tracts terminate on the lateral group of the alpha motor neurons. Anterior corticospinal tracts are going to terminate onto the medial group of the alpha motor neurons. Lateral corticospinal tracts also terminate on the interneurons. Lateral corticospinal tracts are also going to terminate onto the sensory relay neurons which are present in the dorsal horn. So this is regarding the termination. The students, they are just going to write that they terminate onto the spinal cord. That is not going to fetch you full marks. So you are supposed to write specifically where these tracts are going to terminate. Some points which we have to remember here is that the lateral corticospinal tract, which are the crossed fibers, they are going to descend the full length of the spinal cord. They are forming the 80% of the crossed fibers. And where is the crossing over taking place? Crossing over is taking place at the level of the medulla. But what about the anterior corticospinal tracts? Very important to remember that anterior corticospinal tracts do not reach further than the mid-thoracic level. They are not going to descend the full length of the spinal cord. And anterior corticospinal tracts, where they are crossing over at the level of the spinal cord. Okay, so these are the important things regarding the origin, course and termination of the corticospinal tract. Now, what are the features of the upper motor neuron lesion? Because usually the question is asked, add a note on the upper motor neuron lesion or differentiate between upper motor neuron lesion and the lower motor neuron lesion. The first point which I told you is that the upper motor neuron means it involves both corticospinal tract as well as the corticobulbar tract. So whenever there is a lesion of this upper motor neuron, which is the most common site of lesion at the internal capsule. Okay, fine. So whenever there is a lesion of the upper motor neuron lesion, what does it lead to? First and foremost thing is that it is going to cause contralateral hemiplegia. Okay. Second thing is what type of hemiplegia it is? It is spastic hemiplegia. Okay, and the type of spasticity here is what is called as clasp knife spasticity. This is what the patient is going to present with. Third thing is what is going to happen to the deep tendon reflexes, all our knee jerk, ankle jerk, all are going to be exaggerated. Fourth thing is what is going to happen to the superficial reflexes, all the superficial reflexes are lost. Fifth very important thing is with regards to the plantar reflex. Now what is going to happen to the plantar reflex? The plantar reflex is extensor plantar reflex. Now this extensor plantar reflex is also called as Babinski sign positive. Okay, and the last part is that there could be over a long term, because the person is not using his muscles, there could be also atrophy, and this atrophy is what is called as a disuse atrophy. It's called as a disuse atrophy. Fine. So these are the features of the upper motor neuron lesion. So just to summarize the entire thing, just started with the introduction wherein I mentioned regarding the layers of the cortex and I told you the areas of the cortex. Then we discussed the origin of the corticospinal tract, 30%, 30% and 40% were from the somatosensory cortex and 60% were from the motor cortex. Very importantly, we discussed the course of the entire corticospinal tract, starting from the corona radiata, internal capsule, midbrain, pons, medulla oblongata, the pyramids, and then the crossing over. 80% of the fibers forming lateral corticospinal tract, and remaining 20% which are remaining on the same side are forming what is called as anterior corticospinal tract. And then we saw the termination of both the lateral as well as the anterior corticospinal tract, and then I also discussed the effect of the lesion. Okay. Now let's see a very important question, in which way the question can be asked. Question can be framed in this manner. A 62-year-old male who is a hypertensive patient, he is going to present to you with sudden headache. Why there is sudden headache? Because there is rupture of a artery inside his head, and that is going to cause increase in the intracranial tension. And then he became suddenly unconscious within few minutes. Okay. On regaining consciousness, what is seen? There is paralysis in the left half of the body. If there is paralysis in the left half of the body, where do you think is the lesion? The lesion should be on the right side. There is exaggerated deep tendon reflexes, and there is also a positive Babinski's sign. So all these things are pointing towards an upper motor neuron lesion. The first question says, where is the probable site of lesion? The most common site of lesion, again I am telling you, is at the level of the internal capsule. Which side? The right side. Or I can also say right-sided pyramidal tract lesion, probable at the internal capsule. Second question says, describe the origin. We have discussed, course discussed, termination discussed, which are involved in the above case with the help of a label diagram. And the last question says is, enumerate the differences between upper motor neuron and the lower motor neuron. I have already discussed what are the features of the upper motor neuron lesion. So this is how the question can be asked. Okay. Hope the corticospinal tract or the pyramidal tract I was able to make you understand, and I was able to make you prepare for your exams in a very well manner. If you have understood this topic, hit the like button, share this video as much as possible, and subscribe to my channel.